What is the greatest weapon a human being possesses? Words, strength, or silence? Imagine you are standing in a crowded hall. Everyone is talking, voices competing, egos clashing. 1,000 arguments dance in the air like sparks, each person desperate to be heard. And then, you enter. You do not raise your voice. You do not rush to speak. You do not even announce yourself. You simply stand, present, grounded, unwavering. Within minutes, without a single syllable, the atmosphere changes. Heads turn. The current of noise shifts around you, as if your silence itself has weight. That is the beginning of outsmarting someone without ever speaking. This is not a trick. It is not a gimmick to win petty arguments. It is a philosophy of power, one as old as humanity and sharpened by the insights of great thinkers like Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche believed that life is a battlefield of forces, a constant struggle for dominance, for meaning, for presence. But he also understood something deeper. The strongest are not always those who shout the loudest. Often, they are the ones who stand so firmly in themselves that words become unnecessary. Now, let me tell you a story. Centuries ago, in a village surrounded by mountains, 2 warriors prepared for a duel. The people gathered, expecting a bloody spectacle. But when the time came, something unusual happened. The first warrior unsheathed his blade, screaming to the heavens, stamping his feet, boasting of the victory he was about to claim. The second warrior, he did nothing. He stood tall, eyes steady, breath calm, hands at his sides. His silence was not weakness, it was terrifying. The crowd grew restless. The boasting warrior began to falter. Why was the other man not reacting? Why was he not preparing? Doubt crept in, then fear. With every passing second, the one who shouted seemed smaller, and the one who said nothing seemed larger, stronger, unstoppable. The duel ended before it began. The loud warrior dropped his blade, defeated not by steel, but by silence. This story, whether legend or truth, illustrates the core of what we are about to explore. To outsmart without speaking is to embody presence so profoundly that others unravel themselves. Nietzsche once observed that most people cannot sit quietly with themselves. They are terrified of silence because in silence, masks fall away. When you remain quiet in the presence of noise, you create a mirror. People see their own insecurities, their own frantic need to fill the void. You, the silent one, reveal nothing. And because you reveal nothing, you become unreadable. Think about the last time you argued with someone. Perhaps it was over something small, or perhaps it was a matter of pride. Words flew back and forth like arrows, but did they land? Or did the argument spiral into confusion? Now imagine if you had remained quiet, not passive, not indifferent, but silently observing. The other person, expecting resistance, would have been forced to wrestle with themselves. Their energy, with no opponent to land on, would collapse inward. This is how silence defeats noise. Outsmarting is not about humiliation. It is not about trickery. It is about revealing the weakness in another without exposing your own. Silence is the shield and the blade. There is a reason why some people, when they walk into a room, command attention without saying a word. It is not magic. It is not luck. It is presence, the deep, unshakable knowledge that they do not need to prove themselves. Nietzsche might have called it the radiance of the will to power. It is not arrogance. It is life expressing itself with such certainty that others bend unconsciously to it. Consider a chess match. The strongest players do not rush their moves. They let silence stretch across the board like a spell. Every pause becomes a question to the opponent. Do you really know what you're doing? The silence unsettles. It forces mistakes. Outsmarting here is not about faster thinking. It is about deeper stillness. Picture this, a meeting room in a glass tower. 2 executives face each other. One is loud, animated, throwing charts, statistics, endless words. The other listens. No interruption, no defensive gestures. Just stillness. At the end of the storm, the quiet one speaks a single sentence, or perhaps none at all, merely sliding a single sheet of paper across the table. That moment carries more weight than all the noise before it. The loud executive has already lost, though he doesn't know it yet. This is the duel of our age, not fought with swords, but with presence. You might ask, why does silence carry such power? The answer lies in human psychology. Most people are trained from childhood to seek approval, to justify themselves, to explain endlessly. When they are met with silence, they panic. Silence is space, and space forces truth to emerge. Words can be manipulated, twisted, dressed in masks, but silence cannot. Nietzsche understood that truth is often unbearable, and most avoid it through endless chatter. By choosing silence, you place yourself on the side of truth, or at least, on the side of mystery. People respect what they cannot fully understand. They fear it too. Outsmarting without words is, at its core, the art of becoming a riddle no one can solve. So let us return to the opening question. What is the greatest weapon a human being possesses? Words may inspire. Strength may dominate. But silence outsmarts. This is the first step in our journey. To stand without trembling. To observe without rushing. To resist the temptation of empty speech. Nietzsche once said, "That which is silent is often stronger than thunder." Whether he meant it literally or not does not matter. What matters is that when you embrace silence, you stop playing the games of others and force them to play yours. In the chapters ahead, we will explore how this mastery unfolds, how body language becomes philosophy, how timing can conquer, how the crowd can be outsmarted without a word. But for now, let us sit with this truth. The duel is already won by the one who does not need to fight. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is strategy. And strategy, when carried with presence, outsmarts all noise. Presence. The word itself carries weight, doesn't it? It suggests something beyond the physical body, beyond the mere fact of standing in a room. Presence is the invisible aura that makes people stop, turn, and notice, even when nothing has been said. But what is it, truly? Nietzsche once wrote about the Übermensch, the figure who transcends ordinary limits and radiates life force in a way that reshapes the world. Presence is not about domination in the crude sense. It is about living so deeply in your own strength that others feel it without explanation. Outsmarting someone without words begins here. You do not need to persuade, argue, or prove. You only need to be. There is an old tale told in Japan about a Zen master and a visiting general. The general, proud and violent, entered the monastery demanding to be shown the secrets of enlightenment. He stomped his boots, rattled his sword, and shouted, "Do you not know who I am? I am the one who can cut you down in an instant." The master looked at him, calm, unshaken, and replied softly, "And I am the one who can be cut down without trembling." The general froze. His power was useless in the face of such presence. For the first time, he felt small. The master did not need to win an argument or brandish a weapon. His stillness dismantled the general's arrogance more thoroughly than any speech could have. This is the power of presence. It disarms before the duel begins. You do not need to be a Zen master or a philosopher to embody this. Think of the last time you met someone who radiated calm strength. Maybe it was a mentor, a leader, or even a stranger. They did not rush their words. They did not fidget. Their eyes rested fully on whoever spoke. You walked away feeling changed, not because of what they said, but because of how they existed. In contrast, think of the opposite. The person who fills every silence with chatter, who laughs nervously, who explains themselves 3 times over. They drain their own authority. Outsmarting, in its truest form, is not about tricking others but about creating an atmosphere where your steadiness becomes undeniable. Presence is power because it cannot be faked. You cannot pretend to be calm when you are restless. You cannot pretend to be confident when your body betrays anxiety. The body reveals what the tongue tries to hide. That is why presence silences pretenders. Nietzsche believed that the self is not something fixed, but something we must constantly overcome. Presence, then, is the art of mastering yourself so completely that others feel it. Outsmarting through presence is not manipulation. It is self-overcoming displayed in silence. Let me paint a picture. In the savannah, a lion rests beneath a tree. Gazelles graze nearby. The lion does not roar, does not chase, does not even move. And yet, every creature knows he is there. His very being alters the behavior of the herd. They eat nervously, eyes flicking toward him. The lion's presence is enough to command the field. Now imagine the opposite, a gazelle trying to look fierce, stamping its feet, pretending to roar. The act would invite laughter, or worse, disaster. Outsmarting begins when you realize, you do not need to pretend to be the lion. You become the lion by mastering stillness, patience, and confidence. Presence is not magic, nor is it reserved for the gifted. It is a discipline. Here are 3 ways to begin. Master your breath. The breath is the anchor of presence. In moments of tension, others rush their words and movements. If you slow your breathing, you slow the entire room. Practice walking into a conversation already calm, each inhale and exhale grounding you. Command your body. The body speaks louder than any word. Stand tall. Do not fidget. Let your gestures be deliberate, not frantic. Nietzsche admired the Greeks because their bodies expressed dignity, not distraction. Presence is physical philosophy. Own the silence. Do not fear pauses. Most people rush to fill silence because it feels uncomfortable. But when you hold it, when you allow silence to stretch, you place others in your rhythm. They adjust to you, not the other way around. There is a paradox here. Presence wins by refusing to compete. The one who insists on winning an argument has already confessed weakness. The one who needs to be heard has already lost control. But the one who rests in silence forces others to orbit around them. Nietzsche saw life as a constant struggle for power, but not all battles are fought on the field. Some are won by never stepping onto it. Presence is the invisible victory. Outsmarting someone without words means you make their struggle unnecessary, even foolish. They exhaust themselves. You remain untouched. Think of the greatest teachers in history. Socrates, though famous for his questioning, often said less than his students. He drew truth out by leaving gaps for others to fill. Jesus of Nazareth, whether you believe in him or not, often answered questions with silence or with a story that demanded reflection. Nietzsche himself sometimes wrote in fragments, aphorisms that forced the reader to supply the missing meaning. The silent teacher outsmarts not by delivering answers but by shaping the atmosphere in which answers are revealed. Outsmarting in life works the same way. You do not need to crush your opponent with cleverness. You only need to hold the space where their own noise collapses. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine tomorrow you walk into a room where tension waits. Perhaps it is a workplace, perhaps a family conflict, perhaps a negotiation. You feel the impulse to explain, to defend, to prove yourself. But instead, you choose stillness. You listen. You breathe. You wait. Within minutes, the noise begins to expose itself. Words lose their sharpness. People contradict themselves. The storm passes, and you remain untouched. You have outsmarted not by force, but by presence. If Nietzsche were here, perhaps he would whisper, "Become the one others cannot look away from, even when you say nothing." He would remind us that life is not about collecting victories in shallow games, but about becoming so profoundly yourself that others sense the weight of your existence. Outsmarting without words is not about proving intelligence, it is about embodying truth. And truth, when lived, requires no defense. So we arrive at the next stage of our journey. We have seen how silence unsettles. We have explored how presence disarms. But how do we make this practical, physical, visible? In the next chapter, we turn to the unspoken language of the body. The tilt of a head, the steadiness of a gaze, the quiet gesture of stillness. These are the weapons of the one who wins without words. For presence is not only felt, it is seen. And it is through body language that philosophy becomes flesh. Words can deceive. They can dress weakness in clever arguments or disguise fear as aggression. But the body, the body rarely lies. If silence is the soil of power, then body language is the architecture that rises from it. Every gesture, every movement, every stillness speaks volumes, often louder than the most carefully chosen words. Outsmarting someone without speaking requires understanding this truth. Your body is your philosophy made flesh. Nietzsche believed that philosophy was not an abstract game played in dusty books. It was life itself, embodied and lived. He admired the Greeks not just for their thought, but for their sculpted bodies, their movement, their posture. For Nietzsche, the way one carried oneself was a reflection of the soul's strength, or its decay. Think of it this way: when you walk into a room, before you open your mouth, everyone has already read your essay. The essay is your stance, your eyes, your breath. Do you slouch, signaling defeat before the battle begins? Do your hands twitch nervously, betraying your lack of grounding? Or do you move like someone who has nothing to prove, deliberate, calm, unwavering? Your body is your philosophy, and when words fall away, it is your body that speaks for you. There is a story told of a Spartan warrior standing at the gates of his city. An enemy messenger arrived, boasting of the massive army approaching, describing the countless soldiers and the destruction they would bring. The Spartan listened in silence. He did not frown, did not laugh, did not even shift his weight. He simply stood, shield at his side, gaze unbroken. The messenger faltered. His words lost their fire. Why? Because the Spartan's body language carried a philosophy: we are unshaken. We are unafraid. That silent message crushed the arrogance of the enemy more thoroughly than any counterargument could have. If you want to outsmart without speaking, begin with these 3 pillars. The eyes, the window of dominance. Eyes are the most primal form of communication. A steady gaze says, "I see you, and I do not flinch." Not a glare, not aggression, simply presence. Avoid darting eyes, which reveal anxiety. Practice holding eye contact just a heartbeat longer than is comfortable. It unsettles without a word. The posture, the architecture of confidence. Your posture tells the story of your soul. Shoulders back, chest open, spine aligned. This posture says, "I belong here." Collapse, on the other hand, screams insecurity. Imagine yourself as a mountain. Still, solid, unmovable. Posture is philosophy translated into geometry. The movement, the poetry of control. Do not fidget. Do not rush. Move as if every gesture matters. Pour water slowly. Walk as if you have nowhere else to be. In a world addicted to haste, slowness radiates authority. Nietzsche admired dancers for this reason. Their bodies expressed freedom and power in motion. Consider the boardroom again. The loud executive gestures wildly, hands slicing through the air like blades. The silent executive listens, then leans back, folding hands calmly on the table. That single gesture says, "I am unshaken. I will not dance to your rhythm." Or imagine an argument where someone leans forward, trying to invade your space. Instead of retreating, you remain exactly where you are. Your stillness becomes defiance. The aggressor grows frustrated, not because you fought back, but because you denied them the satisfaction of rattling you. In both cases, the body speaks a language words could never match. Nietzsche often wrote about masks, how every human wears them, how society demands them. Body language, too, can be a mask. But here lies the secret: the best mask is not falsehood, but mystery. If your body always reveals exactly what you feel, you are easily read, easily manipulated. Outsmarting requires cultivating what I call controlled opacity. You show enough to command respect, but never enough to be predictable. Like a chess master, you reveal only the moves you choose, never your full hand. A half smile instead of a laugh. A steady gaze instead of a glare. A slow breath instead of a sigh. These small choices turn your body into a riddle others cannot solve. And what cannot be solved must be respected. There is power in the gaze itself. Think of predators in nature. Wolves stare down their prey, not frantically but steadily. Prey animals look away first. In human interactions, the duel of gazes often decides who leads and who follows. But beware, staring aggressively is the move of the insecure. True dominance does not need to force. The secret is in relaxation. A steady, calm gaze communicates, "I see you, and nothing about you shakes me." That, more than words, unsettles the insecure. Sometimes silence is not stillness but deliberate motion. Pouring tea with grace in a hostile negotiation. Adjusting your jacket slowly when someone challenges you. Walking away without haste while insults are hurled. These silent motions outsmart because they demonstrate self-mastery. Nietzsche admired the idea of life as art. If every movement is art, then your body becomes a performance of strength. Outsmarting someone is not about tricking them. It is about embodying an elegance they cannot match. There is a legend of a French duelist known not just for his swordsmanship, but for his composure. Before each duel, while his opponent sweated and paced, he calmly adjusted his gloves. The act was infuriating. It said, "I have time. I am in control. You cannot rush me." Often, the duel ended before it began. The opponent's panic made them sloppy. The silent ritual of adjusting gloves was deadlier than any strike. His body language was philosophy. Patience conquers haste. To Nietzsche, philosophy was not something you speak, it is something you live. The way you eat, walk, breathe, stand, these are your arguments. Outsmarting someone without speaking is, therefore, not a trick of psychology, but a way of being. Ask yourself, if someone were to watch me silently for 1 hour, what philosophy would they read in me? Would they see confidence or doubt, calm or chaos, strength or collapse? This is where the true game lies, not in cleverness, but in embodiment. Let us make this tangible. In your next conversation, resist the urge to nod excessively. Instead, hold still. Let the silence of your body invite others to keep speaking. They will reveal more than they intended. In your next meeting, plant both feet on the ground. Do not cross your arms nervously or tap your fingers. Let your stillness dominate the space. In your next confrontation, slow your movements. Take a sip of water, adjust your posture. The deliberate slowness unsettles the restless. Each of these small actions turns your body into philosophy, into Nietzsche's idea of strength lived rather than spoken. We have now seen how silence creates the soil and presence shapes the air, and how the body itself becomes a philosophy that speaks without words. But what of strength? What of the raw force that others so desperately try to display with noise? In our next chapter, we will confront this directly, why the strongest never need to shout, and how to embody that paradox in your own life. For to outsmart, one must not only appear strong, one must become strong, quietly, undeniably. The world loves arguments. Entire industries are built on debates, on shouting matches broadcast across screens, on people clashing to prove who is right. But here is a hard truth: the strongest rarely argue. They do not need to. Argument is often a mask for weakness. Those who shout the loudest reveal how desperately they want to be believed. Those who defend themselves endlessly confess their own insecurity. Nietzsche understood this deeply. He wrote that conviction is often the refuge of those who cannot see the truth. Strength, real strength, is silent. There is an ancient story of a king accused by his rivals of treason against his own people. They dragged him before the crowd, shouting accusations, demanding he explain himself. The people waited for his defense, for his counter-arguments, for his proof. But the king said nothing. Instead, he walked slowly down the steps, removed his crown, and set it on the ground. Then he stood tall, silent, unshaken. The crowd grew restless. Whispers spread. The accusers grew frantic. Why does he not deny it? Why does he not defend himself? And then, one by one, the people turned, not against the king, but against the accusers. For in his silence, he revealed a strength deeper than words. He trusted himself. He trusted reality to speak louder than arguments. His silence turned the crowd into his defenders. This is the paradox. The one who refuses to fight often wins the greatest battles. Arguments are traps. The moment you step into one, you are playing by the other's rules. You accept their frame, their assumptions, their demands. Outsmarting means refusing that game altogether. Nietzsche wrote of the will to power, not the will to argue. Power does not explain itself. The sun does not argue with the darkness, it simply rises. The tree does not argue with the wind, it bends, and still it grows. Strength that must justify itself is not strength, it is weakness pretending to be strong. When you resist the pull of argument, you hold the higher ground. You become untouchable. Picture a soldier standing at the edge of a battlefield. An enemy jeers at him, hurling insults, demanding a reaction. The soldier remains still, eyes fixed, hands steady. The enemy grows louder, angrier, desperate to provoke. And still, nothing. Finally, the enemy grows reckless, charges forward, and exposes himself. The silent soldier does not need to outshout him. He needs only one strike, well timed, to end the battle. This is the essence of strength beyond argument. Let the other exhaust themselves in noise, while you conserve your power in silence. Why do people argue? Because they fear silence. Silence feels like loss. When someone refuses to engage, the arguer feels their words collapsing into emptiness. It terrifies them. Nietzsche observed that most people cannot bear the weight of emptiness, so they fill it with noise, opinions, justifications, chatter. The strong, on the other hand, embrace emptiness. They are comfortable in silence because they are comfortable with themselves. To outsmart someone without speaking, you must learn to let silence do what noise cannot, expose insecurity. Let me tell you a modern tale. Two political leaders faced off on stage. One stormed with passion, voice rising, hands waving, drowning the air in promises and threats. The other stood quietly, speaking rarely, sometimes not at all, letting long silences stretch. The crowd leaned forward. They strained to hear the quiet leader's rare words. His pauses forced them to fill the space with their own anticipation. By the end, though the loud leader had spoken 10,000 words, it was the silences of the other that everyone remembered. This is why the strongest rarely argue. Silence magnifies. Noise diminishes. There is a kind of strength in restraint. Anyone can shout. Anyone can defend themselves. But to remain calm in the face of attack requires mastery. It requires what Nietzsche called self-overcoming, the art of conquering not others first, but yourself. Restraint turns silence into a weapon. When someone insults you and you remain unmoved, you reveal their impotence. Their words bounce off like arrows striking stone. They expected a duel. You gave them nothing. In that moment, you outsmart them completely, for they fought a battle that never began. Imagine shouting at a mountain. Your voice bounces back, but the mountain itself remains unmoved. The echo is your own noise returned to you. That is what happens when the weak attack the strong who do not answer. The noise only reflects back upon the attacker, while the mountain stands eternal. You must become that mountain. Let others shout, accuse, provoke. Your silence is their echo. And in the end, they defeat themselves. To embody strength beyond argument, begin with these practices. Pause before responding. When provoked, count 3 breaths before reacting. Often, the provoker will unravel in that pause. Answer less than expected. If someone demands explanations, give them fewer words than they hoped. A short phrase, a nod, or even a glance can be stronger than an essay. Let silence expose weakness. In meetings or conflicts, resist the urge to defend every accusation. Often, the attacker reveals their contradictions when left unchecked. These are not tricks. They are disciplines. Each time you refuse to argue, you train yourself to embody Nietzsche's deeper insight. True power does not need to shout. There is a tale of a philosopher accused publicly of heresy. Crowds gathered, demanding he refute the charges. Instead, he simply walked through the marketplace, buying bread, greeting children, feeding the poor. His actions spoke louder than any defense. Over time, the accusations faded, but his presence remained. Nietzsche would have admired this, life itself as the answer, not endless arguments. Outsmarting without words often means letting your existence be the counter-argument. We have seen now how silence disarms, how presence commands, how the body speaks philosophy, and how strength requires no argument. But there is another dimension yet, the mask and the shadow. To outsmart someone without words, you must also become unreadable. You must learn the art of concealment, of showing only what you choose. For mystery is power, and what cannot be known cannot be controlled. That is where we go next, into the territory of the mask, the shadow, and the riddle that silence creates. Every human being wears a mask. Some are painted with smiles, others with frowns, some with certainty, others with doubt. Society itself demands it. To live among others is to conceal as much as you reveal. Nietzsche understood this deeply. Truth, naked and unfiltered, is too heavy for most to bear. And so we craft masks, not merely to deceive others, but to protect ourselves. But here lies the art. While most people are slaves to their masks, the wise learn to use them. To outsmart someone without saying a word, you must master the mask and the shadow, the art of revealing only what you choose, and concealing the rest in silence. Picture a crowded hall where everyone is shouting their beliefs, their opinions, their identities. Then a figure enters, silent, face unreadable. Not blank, controlled. Not cold, mysterious. At once, attention shifts. People wonder, who is this? What do they know? Why are they so calm? This is the power of the mask. By refusing to display everything, you force others to imagine what lies beneath. And imagination is always more powerful than explanation. The mask is not about lying. It is about restraint. It is the decision to let your silence and body language raise questions you never answer. Outsmarting begins not with clever words, but with the aura of mystery. Nietzsche often wrote of the shadow, the darker, hidden part of the self. Most people fear it. They deny their desires, their anger, their doubts. But the shadow does not disappear. It waits. It leaks out in nervous laughter, in trembling hands, in frantic speech. To outsmart without words, you must integrate your shadow. You must accept it, master it, carry it without shame. For when you know your own darkness, you no longer fear the darkness of others. Silence becomes easy, because you are no longer running from yourself. The one who fears his shadow reveals everything. The one who walks with his shadow reveals nothing, and becomes unreadable. Let us return to the metaphor of the duel. Two adversaries face each other. One rages, revealing every emotion, fear, anger, desperation. The other wears a mask of calm, revealing nothing. Which is stronger? The one who rages has given away his entire strategy before the fight begins. The one with the mask remains a riddle. The mask forces the opponent to waste energy imagining possibilities, while the shadow ensures there are depths he cannot see. This is how silence outsmarts, not by answering, but by refusing to be solved. How do we cultivate this mask in daily life? Control your face. Practice neutrality. A soft half smile, a steady gaze, an expression that invites curiosity but never reveals full intention. Master the pause. When asked a question, delay your answer. Even if you speak, let the silence hang a moment longer. The pause itself becomes a mask. Reveal selectively. Share less than you know, less than you feel. A single well-chosen detail carries more power than an endless explanation. Through these practices, you become unreadable, not by hiding, but by choosing. Nietzsche himself wore masks in his writing. He used aphorisms, riddles, fragments, knowing his readers would never fully pin him down. Some loved him, some hated him, but few understood him entirely. And that was his strength, to remain beyond capture. When you outsmart without words, you are doing the same. You are shaping perception, forcing others to wrestle with the silence you leave behind. Like Nietzsche's texts, you become a question, not an answer. In many traditions, the wisest masters say the least. Laozi, in the Tao Te Ching, used poetry and paradox instead of explanations. Zen masters answered questions with silence or a single gesture. Even in Nietzsche's philosophy, the most powerful truths are never spelled out, they are hinted at, left for the reader to discover. Why? Because silence and mystery force growth. Words can be memorized. Silence must be endured. To outsmart without words is to plant seeds of doubt, curiosity, and awe in the minds of others, seeds that grow long after you have left. Let me close with a story. A young warrior once asked his master, "How can I defeat my enemies without fighting?" The master led him to a lake. They sat in silence. The warrior grew restless. Minutes passed. Hours. Finally, the warrior burst out, "Why do you say nothing?" The master pointed to the still water. "See how the lake reflects the sky. The birds, the clouds, even you. It shows everything, but reveals nothing of its own depth. To outsmart, become like the lake. Let others see themselves in you, but keep your depths hidden. Silence will be your victory. The warrior bowed, understanding at last. So what have we uncovered? Silence unsettles the noisy. Presence commands without force. The body speaks louder than words. Strength beyond argument cannot be defeated. And the mask, the shadow, and the mystery are the ultimate shield and sword. To outsmart someone without saying a word is not a trick. It is a way of being. It is the discipline of silence, the philosophy of presence, the elegance of the body, the strength of restraint, and the mystery of the mask. Nietzsche would remind us, life is not about winning arguments or proving yourself in shallow games. It is about becoming so profoundly yourself that no explanation is necessary. And so, the final secret, the greatest victory is not spoken. It is lived. Walk silently. Stand firmly. Wear your mask. Know your shadow. Outsmart not by noise, but by presence. In the end, those who need words will shout themselves hoarse. You will remain silent, unshaken, undefeated.